Hi, I'm Brittany. I'm a licensed elementary school teacher, but I'm staying home right now with my two little ones and to homeschool them and run my business. And today we're going to talk about 10 board games that help kids learn math. Okay, so with the quarantine being what it is right now, it's a lot harder to get out and do things than usual, obviously. But one thing a lot of us have at home are board games. Now, I will say my family has tons of board games, like dozens of them. We don't play them nearly as much as we would like, but now that we're home, we have more time. So, but one of the great things that a lot of people don't realize is that board games can really help children with practicing their math skills, and they can give kids reason to practice. So if you're sitting there and you're teaching children math and for example, you're doing money. Money may be harder if you can't go into the store to buy things. It might be a little harder to explain, hey, we give someone money and they give us things. That might be a little harder to explain to some of the young ones who may not understand why we use money the way we do. But there are some board games that can help with teaching these concepts while giving kids reasons to practice. It's a lot harder to get them really interested if you're just sitting there counting out bills. Should you? Yes, but it's harder for kids to commit that alone to memory. And if they're not able to go out and about, to go to stores and watch you pay for things and understand how money works, it can just be a little harder for them to commit that to memory with context. Context is everything. We have to give everything we teach a reason. Why are we using this in the world? I'm one of those learners who, for certain things, I really need context for it. For example, I always thought algebra was decently easy, but I got to geometry and had no clue. I mean, I understood some of the reasons for geometry, but got to proofs, and I'm like, why on earth do we need to know this anyways? This is stupid. I did it, but I thought it was stupid. And then I got to trig, and trig is kind of a marriage of geometry and algebra. And oh my gosh, it made sense. Like suddenly I realized why we had geometry, and the trig made everything make sense. I needed context. Children need context as well. They need to know why they're learning things. And it's really easy to say because it's in the workbook, but it's better if we give them a purpose. And that's really one of the beautiful things about homeschooling, and one of the things that I really want to really show parents is that we have to give our children reasons for learning things. We have to put everything in the light that, yeah, you're going to use this one day and this is what we're going to use it for. When I was substitute teaching, I was working in a fourth grade class. Third grade. And they were just starting percentages. And most of them didn't understand taxes. They didn't understand interest. And so I said, okay, imagine you're 18 and you've saved up all this money and, you're going to buy this car. And then I started giving them, how much it was going to cost with the taxes on top of it, and how much it was going to cost with interest. And their little faces about hit the floor when they realized you can't just buy big things like that. You have to pay extra for it unless you're paying cash. And so really giving kids context gives them a reason to understand it. It all goes back to scaffolding again, building those bases. So when you see a painter up on a scaffold and they're painting a taller part of the building, they wouldn't get up on the platform if it didn't have all the bottom pieces attached. And so what we're doing when we scaffold, when we give kids context, is we're attaching those pieces and saying, this is why you need to know this, and this relates to this, and this relates to this. We're putting all those pieces together so that the platform is stable, so that their foundation is solid. Because if you build on a foundation that's not solid, it's going to be much harder to go back and fill in those pieces later. And the higher you get, the more rickety the platform is going to be. So we're going to talk about 10 games today, and I did say board games. One is a card game, but 10 games that you can play that really help kids understand math. Now, are they limited to these? Absolutely not. There are, countless games that you can do that will help teach math, but we're just going to use some of the ones that I have on hand today. Okay, so I just happen to have this one. This is a Scholastic Pizza Fun Fraction game. My parents had one that I liked much better. It's very similar, but they had one called Fractions Easy as Pie. And it was so fun because it had these beautiful life-size cardboard pieces of like cherry pie and blueberry pie and apple pie. I think there were 3. And you would spin a spinner and it would tell you a fraction. So you'd go and you'd find, oh, it gave me the 8th. So you get an eighth of your pie and put it in, and whoever finished their pie first won. So every time you would spin and you would get whatever fraction that said, and it got hard towards the end because you might have used you know, all of the pieces of that particular amount, because there were like 2 or 3/8 pieces, and then, you know, there was a quarter piece and a half, and anyway, so it was fun. So if you can find that game, I highly recommend it. I'll see if I can link it on the website. I just used this because I found this at Target, and it seems like a pretty similar kind of game. It wasn't expensive. I think I bought it for $3 or $5. But again, games with fractions. Fractions are so much more fun when they're with food. That's why I encourage a lot of parents to teach fractions. Begin fractions in the kitchen. Use it while you're baking. My daughter is 5 and she already understands what a half is. She's learning what quarters are. Because we're doing, you know, a 1/4 cup of flour, you know, a 1/3 cup of sugar. Now, if I gave her a test, could she fill out the answers on a paper? No. But in real life, in the part of life that it actually matters, she is learning what it means to have a 1/3 of a cup or a 1/4 of a cup or a 1/2 cup. She feeds the dog, and she knows for lunch he gets a 1/2 cup of food. So she'll go in and she'll get a 1/2 cup, and she knows what a half means. If I asked her to write it on paper, she couldn't, but she knows in real life, which is again where it counts, what it means. I mean, we're laying the foundations for when we actually do fractions on paper. She's going to have an understanding of why we're learning these things already. Okay, so again, mine was called Pizza Fun Fraction Game. The game I had as a kid was called Fractions Easy as Pie. I'll try to find that online. Okay, so this is the knockoff version, but this is a Shopkins pop and race game. Trouble is the actual game, and it's the same. I mean, it's exactly the same game. You pop it, there's a dice in here. This practices numbers with the dice, so, you know, knowing, you know, the 4 dots, it's 4, the 3 diagonal, that's 3, and, you know, you are racing the other players around to see if you can get all your pieces back home before they do. So that's a great counting game. It's kind of, the popping is fun. It's hard to pop the thing. So Trouble, and again, I'll link that as well. Matching games. Now, this is one of the earliest ones. This is probably the earliest board game you should start your children with. I wouldn't give them all the pieces at first because that's daunting. Start with, you know, 6 or 10, and you put them in a row and you show them. Now, my daughter didn't get it the first couple of times we tried this, but as she got older, she started to understand. This works on pairs and matching and understanding that, trying to commit to memory where things are. This is a really good game for helping children learn to memorize and to pay attention to things. And again, it works on doubles, matching, which is basic math. So anyways, any sort of matching game, fantastic. And this is one that I would probably, one of the first board games you should give a child. I guess it's technically not a board game, but it's a game. Okay, number 4 is Hi-Ho Cheerio. This is a fantastic game for counting. Again, there's a little spinner and you count them. I did like the old version better. I don't know why they decided to update game rules. Like, why would you do that? I've seen so many games where they've updated things. I'm like, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. But Hi-Ho Cheerio is great because it does use counting. The only thing that I would warn you with this is it does have, kids think they're really fun. They're these little Cheerios, and you're trying to get, you know, pick all of your first, or put them on, I don't know what this one is, put them on the tree. When I was little, I was picking them. The only thing is they're choking hazards. So if you have a teeny, like my 2-year-old still sticks things like this in his mouth, you know, he'll just want to watch that. But this is a fantastic game for counting, and this one I think it's 3. It used to be 4 people could play at once. Now it's 3. But anyways, it's still a great game for counting because you're only going up, I think the highest number on the board is 4. So kids don't have to have all their numbers memorized. It's just 1 through 4. Good basic practice. Okay, another really good counting one is Uncle Wiggly. I was so excited when I found this. I think I found this secondhand actually somewhere. But Uncle Wiggly is a board game, and it has directions that you have to help your kids read them, because most kids probably can't read all the directions if they're learning their numbers still. But it has, I don't know if it rhymes anymore. The one that I had when I was little was hurry, hurry, don't be late. Move Uncle Wiggly ahead by 8, and Uncle Wiggly will have to move 4 to 8 pieces. They have places where you get stuck and places where you have to go back. Anyway, this is a really fun game, and like 4 people can play at a time. So the whole family you know, I guess depending on how many, but you know, your family can play. It's more than 2 people. Another really good for counting, and again that they changed the rules, was Chutes and Ladders. I found this one used. That's why the box looks so beat up. The new one, I don't know why they changed the colors. It was really bizarre, but they, so with this one, I like it. This is more like the old one. I loved the one I had when I was little. Obviously it didn't survive till now, but they have the squares are white and blue, and you, so you do the spinner, and they tell you how many to move, and then if you're on the bottom of a ladder, you get to go up. If you're at the top of a slide, you have to go down. And so it could actually drag on quite a while. It's not a fast game, but it's really good for counting, because they're just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and you're going up and down, and it's fun. The only thing I really didn't like in the new one, which it's nothing against the game itself, is that they made these squares all green. The new one is like slightly darker green, and then slightly lighter green, slightly darker, and I don't understand why they didn't change the colors, because that's really hard for kids to to tell the difference. My daughter had a really hard time counting the rectangles. Like I said, I found a used version, but if you can get this one, and if your kids don't mind that color difference, some kids might not, or you might just have to help them. This is a fantastic game for counting. Let's see. Okay, another fantastic game for counting, Candyland. Good old-fashioned, you can't go wrong with Candyland. And this one, they changed the colors, but it's actually still, the rules are the same. It's great. And I mean, the colors are just so much fun. You know, you still got your double blue and single green. And this one does counting, because you count, you know, one blue, or 2, 1, 2 green, or 1 red, or, you know, all that. But it also practices colors. So this is probably, following the matching game, one of the first games you should play with your children is Candyland. Now, don't get frustrated if you start them too young. I tried my daughter too young. She wasn't ready. We put it away and pulled it back out later, and she loves this game. And this is a really fast game. So you can play Candyland, you know, gosh, we've played 3 times in a half-hour time period before, just depending on how fast you go. But 4 people can play it, and yeah, this is just a really fun, simple game. I mean, old goodies. It's one of the best, if not the best board game, I think, for young children. Lockets. Now, this is not for little kids, but my daughter is 5, and she is very good at geometry. And what this game is you have all these geometric shapes, and so you are trying to put down all of your pieces first. So, I mean, you only put down one at a time, but you want to put the big ones first, because at the end, you count how many little individual squares you have left. So if you've gotten rid of the big ones first, you're going to have fewer ones to worry about at the end. You have to put one down so it's touching your color, but it can only touch by corners. They can't touch sides. And so you're trying to take over the board, and other people are trying to take over the board. And my daughter's actually gotten really good at this game. My son still tries to steal the pieces. Literally, he sneaks away with them. But this is a really good game for geometry. And there's really a lot to be said for teaching children to understand geometric shapes in their head and how to move them, kind of like Tetris. That's a fun game for when they get a little older. But understanding how to move pieces around in your head, that's actually that's a strength not everyone has. Some people are naturally better at it than others. But teaching children to be able to do things like, in geometry you call it reflections, translations, move things around in your head and be able to see where they're going to end up. This is a great way to train for that. Let's see, we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 2 more. One is Monopoly Junior. My daughter got this recently. I'm not sure where it is. It's probably in her room, but it's a great way to practice money. And you've got the Monopoly dollars, and they changed the rules. I don't know why. Maybe to make it shorter. But it's still a great way. We've been practicing money with her. She's 5. She still has a little bit of a hard time sometimes with the rules, but she's getting there. And it's really good because we're practicing, paying money and giving money, getting money, giving money. And you can always, change the rules if you want. If you like something better, think something would be easier, you can always change the rules for your family. Another one that's slightly higher, it's higher in level is a card game, Uno, which I'm sure most of you have played. That's a great one because it deals with similarities and differences. So, you know, if you're trying to get rid of all your cards, and if there's a yellow 8, you can put down a yellow or an 8 or a wild. And so it forces a higher level thinking. Because you're working on multiple levels. You're working with numbers, you're working with colors, and you're working with exceptions. And so games like that are great. I mean, card games are pretty much almost all math anyways. Of course, they have, you know, English language arts type of games too, Boggle, Scrabble. Those are a little harder. So little bitties like, you know, kids like 4 and 5 are going to have a harder time with those, I think, usually. For whatever reason, the math games are easier for the younger ones, but as they get older, those are fantastic. Games are wonderful. They really are good for the brain. And so the more you can get your kids playing games, the better. It's not on the computer. It's not on a screen. It's not on an iPad. They need to play with their siblings. So if they have siblings, you're like, here, do this. And on the days where you just really, you need them to practice their skills, but you don't have time to do, you know, a lesson for that day, you can still make sure that they get practice if they're playing a game. And most kids would prefer to play a board game than to be given a worksheet. So if that's a day where you're like, you know, someone gets sick and goes to the doctor, or you have an emergency and you need them to do something, but you don't have time to oversee it, playing a game is fantastic. And it always ups those social skills. Okay, well, that's it for now. If you have a favorite board game, please let me know in the comments. If your kids have favorite board games, let me know. I will put links to these in my website. Make sure to like and subscribe if this video has helped you, and so you can make sure you're up to date. You can also go to my website and you can get free learning materials there that are printable if you join my newsletter list, and that's at brittanypearl.com. You can also email me at brittany.pearl.teach@gmail.com. Pearl is P-E-R-L, no A, P-E-R-L. Okay, well, I hope you're having a great day, and I will talk to you later.